Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to be walking through activity 5-3 titled Creating a VPN Connection and Testing the VPN. This is from the MCSE/MCSA Guide to Microsoft Windows Server 2012 Administration in preparation of exam 70-411. In my edition of the book, this activity begins at the bottom of page 180. So a quick background about the activity. We went ahead and configured server 2 here to allow remote connections and VPNs. And so in this activity, we are going to be configuring a client, a Windows 8 client, to establish a VPN connection. So there's a few things we're going to need to do to begin. We have two interfaces on our server. One of these is set up to the domain network. The other is going to be used for our VPN. Since I'm doing this in VMware, there's a few things I need to configure. Once it comes up here, let me close these really quick. Bring this over so we can see it. I'm going to modify our settings. Doesn't like keeping that on top, so we'll do it that way. So we have three networks, 0, 1, and 8. 8 is my domain network set up for NAT so that my virtual machines can access the internet. I'm going to add a new network, and we're going to use, I'll just use VMnet 10 in this case. It doesn't really matter what you use if you're using VMware. It's how you configure it that's really important. So right now it's designed as a host only, which is fine. I'm actually going to remove the host adapter connection so they can't. So devices on that network won't be able to communicate directly with my laptop here. We're going to give it a network, a subnet IP 203.0.113.0, and we'll just treat it like a class C. That'll be fine. I'm also going to remove DHCP from that and have it create that network. Then we'll go ahead and open up VMware again. And we want to connect one of the adapters to that network on our server. And we'll do the same thing on our desktop environment. So this would simulate like being at home and connecting to that server in order to access your work network securely with VPN. So there's the network setup side. A couple other things we're going to need to do is make sure that these devices are using the correct IP addressing for that network. So I'll set up the domain environment first. Or sorry, the desktop environment first. Take it off of the domain network. And then we'll do the same thing on the server. And so it's already picking up .1, which is good. One thing to notice here, if you're following me in VMware, back in our network editor, for that network, if you leave the host as a virtual adapter on that network, it'll automatically take .1. So then if you try to set your server at .1, you have a conflict, you have to move your server to .2 instead. So just a side note there. Alright, and then on the server, we need to give a user access to the server through that network, so we need to set up a local user because it won't be coming in through the domain anymore. So we'll just do a new user, We'll call this VPN test 1, give it a password, and set the password to never expire. And then we want to open up the properties for the user, come to the Dial In tab, and allow network access permissions. Okay, once that has been completed, then we want to go back to our desktop environment and build the connection. So right here, we'll set up the new connection. We're going to connect to a workplace using a VPN connection. Set up the internet connection later. If your device can set it up now, that would be fine. How you want to do that is up to you. And we'll put the IP address of the server here. And we'll call this 411 server 2 VPN. These options, again, are optional. Using a smart card, if your hardware doesn't support it, it doesn't do any good to enable it. Remembering your credentials is a little more user-friendly, but if somebody that shouldn't have those credentials borrows or uses their computer, you may have a security breach there, and allowing other people to use this connection can also potentially open up some security issues. I'll leave it as the default for now. And let's go ahead and get rid of that for a moment so we can see how to find it. So say your user logs in and that doesn't immediately pop up to connect to the VPN connection. They can always come down here and left click to open this and select the VPN to connect. So here's another thing to pay attention to. When we created that user on server 2, we created it as a local user. But server 2 is part of a domain environment. So by default, any user account that tries to log into server 2, it's going to try to find that user in the Active Directory. Since this user doesn't exist in Active Directory, it's a local account, we need to give the device name for server 2. Like that. Didn't mean to minimize it. Let's try that again. And again, most of the time this stuff isn't case sensitive, so it really shouldn't matter. And then we can see that we are connected with that VPN. So that'll allow us access to that server's network through the other server interface, network interface, and then we could potentially access data on our work computer from home. There is a note here in the book that if the VPN does not connect and you see error 850, open the VPN connection properties dialog box, click the security tab, and click use EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol. In Windows 8, you can't really click on this, right click on it to open any properties boxes. So on Windows 8, and I'm probably on Windows 10, you'll need to do manage VPN, manage virtual private networks. Select your VPN and hit edit. Here's some of the basic settings. And again, how you configure this is kind of dependent on your network environment. Right? So there should be one other way that we can view those, and that would be through our Network and Sharing Center. Go change adapter settings. We'll select our VPN connector, and we'll select properties from here. And this is the security tab it's referring to, where it should have use EAP enabled. says since the connection's open, these settings won't change until I restart the connection. Alright, so continuing on in the activity, we want to take a look at the IP address assigned to our desktop environment on that VPN connection. So again, we'll do that here. And so there's our destination. And status. There we go. Under details, we should see our IP address here. 10.11.0.101, and that was configured in the previous activity where we enabled server 2 to accept these VPN connections. We also gave it a range of addresses that it could hand out acting as DHCP for the VPN connections. Alright, looks like that's pretty much everything for the activity. The rest of it's reconnecting your desktop environment back to the domain network and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that in the video. I think we all know how to change an IP address and connect our network interfaces. So I'm going to assume everybody knows how to do that, and I'll end the video here. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them for me below, and I will try to reply in a timely fashion. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.